system that's connected to a reflector through its gateway, and then you're now transmitting right smack dab in the middle of who knows what. There could be a huge QSO going on. There could be a net that's occurring. There's all kinds of things, and you will not know that. There's no way to know that your call sign routed signal is not being disruptive. Now, when this net was held on the REF, that is the D plus system, which is what these two new radios are geared towards. They're not made really for much more than that. We used to have stations from Japan, but from other places as well, who were using call sign routing for a while. That's all Japan had. Reflectors are a fairly recent phenomena in Japan, but they're still reliant upon it, which explains the design of the two new ICOM radios. But in any event, we used to have Japanese and a few other stations just come barreling in, either calling CQ, which sounds horrible on digital anyway, or they just announce their presence. Sometimes they take you out. Much of the time I saw them as a double. But in any event, they were doing what, I guess in Japan is acceptable, or at least they have some way of dealing with it. But elsewhere, you're just blasting away, unable to hear what's going on the other side. So, for those that are enchanted with call sign routing, just keep in mind that it's the considered opinion of many that it's a bad operating practice. It's really the black mark on D-Star, from my opinion. It's a feature that I would like to see go away completely on D-Star. And I think I saw some presentation in which AA4RA Robin Cutshaw also echoed the same sentiments, but you just can't wipe out an entire country, and I'm sure there are a few others that maybe also use it, and just say, fine, we're going to eliminate you. But that's the problem of its being available, just like beaconing. It's another, there's a place for it, and it must be used wisely. Frankly, call sign routing, I'm not even sure that there's a place for it anymore, at least not in anywhere outside of Asia. But that's just my view and the view of many others. So, those of you trying to make call sign routing work, good luck. Just keep in mind that it's a bad operating practice. And that's 60 seconds of D-Star Basics, or thereabouts. And as always, if you'd like to take issue with 60 seconds of D-Star Basics, that is, you think that I've got it all wrong, or I misspoke, or you have another take, or if you happen to use call sign routing successfully in a manner that I have yet to hear of, please feel free to key up and say so. I'll stand corrected if it's worth it. Nobody takes offense to anybody being critical of another station's position on either 60 seconds or, for that matter, any of the topics that you hear. Don't be shy if something doesn't sit right with you during some station's presentation, because by keying up on this round table, you waive your right to being upset about anything, meaning that you can feel free to key up and say, wait a minute, I thought it was thus and such. Of course, that's why we're here. We're here mostly to talk technical things, but we do 60 seconds of D-Star Basics to help out those that are new. Anyway, you guys all know the rules. Nobody's going to get upset here. So, let's start right out to take a look at the Shoutbox posts. We try to get to those early. And I think probably the biggest news is the post by KK6MY asked about Buster, an updated version of it, 1.1, has been released. Pretty spectacular. So, is there a station out there that's downloaded it and put it to use? What do you think? Can you tell us a little bit more about whether it now solves all those ills that many of us faced when trying to put Buster to use? Stations, please key up. Well, nobody jumped on that. So the post is pretty explicit. Now, one thing that in my playing around with it, I think you know that I've been trying to take some of the patches that I've run into and fixes because I was one-sided on Buster like many people were. And my operating system here on this Mac is El Capitan for a lot of reasons. I haven't upgraded to Sierra on purpose, and because I quite frankly don't want to lose a bunch of apps who have all flipped off Sierra and refused to deal with it. But anyway, um, when I tried to download it, of course, it would not download. It's available in the Apple Store, the App Store, and you just have to search for it in Buster. And in the Apple App Store, it'll show you Buster. And if you haven't installed it, it'll say Get. And if you have installed it and it sees it in your applications folder, it'll say Update. But it will not update unless you've got the latest version of Mac OS, which presently is Sierra. I tried valiantly to download it on El Capitan, and it would not do it. So I stopped working on the fixes for the current version. I was unaware that there was some progress being made on an update, but I stopped it because I said, well, here, we got a new version and it says it's going to fix everything. So I will probably continue to work on Buster on patches and fixes that have been posted both in Northwest Digital's Buster blog as well as other places. If you guys follow the Yahoo groups, you'll see there's been a number of postings on different ways to make Buster work for those that couldn't get Buster to work. And see if I can get a report or something put together for those of you who, like me, would just as soon not move to Sierra and are still on El Capitan. But if that's unsuccessful, then you'll have to have Sierra on your Mac in order to download and put the newest version of Buster, which claims to have updated its capability to both provide connections to D-Extra and DCS reflectors, which is a big to-do, as well as some other bugs, and there's a number of other things that work. Remember, Buster is built for the Thumb DV, and apparently it will also perhaps work. It says in this post that the DV3K, which is Robin's Thumb DV of sorts, but it's not called the Thumb DV. So that is the core of the news on that. Stations, anybody would like to add to the discussion about Buster? I really would like to hear from someone that's downloaded it and put it to use successfully, and I should say, if you downloaded it and it still doesn't work, the new version, assuming you have Mac OS Sierra, I'd like to hear from you as well. Stations, please key up. Alrighty, well, that seems to be about as exciting as being a poke in the eye. So let's. I didn't see any new posts in the current discussions folder. Let me just take another quick peek here. Yeah, I don't see anything. And it doesn't look like there's much activity elsewhere. Well, now we got a bunch of extra posts here. Let's see. I have to ask AA0RX, what is the deal with the Hawaiian shirt? Are you bad-mouthing Hawaiian shirts, or is Andy allergic to them? Gary, you care to elaborate? You don't have to, but it's just, I was wondering what that was all about. AA0RX, go ahead. Well, maybe we have stations that aren't online and just are posting in the shout box. I guess that's okay. Why listen when you can just type away? Let's see. TWS reports new XLX reflectors are online. And I see what he's done. All right, interesting. Congratulations. I'm glad you were able to make the change from the reflector that was chosen earlier. Anyone wish to comment on that? Please key up.
K6KD.
K6KD, thanks for showing some interest. Anyway, hi, John. Go ahead.
That message about the 626. I'm a little bit puzzled, though, because Phil, who talked about it last week, had gone to the X-Reflector forum and gotten a user ID, which you need to do to post to the thread to ask for a reflector to be added to the directory. But he never requested it. He never posted it in that thread. And I was kind of concerned about it because it's a long shot. It's very remote. But if someone, I know they went to the trouble of changing their domain. If somebody, I know it's a very, very remote, but if somebody had posted a thread first asking for that number, I'd probably be obligated to put that in the directory. So I am a little bit puzzled, to say the least, as to why the request wasn't made in the forum. Back to net.
26. Anyway, it's all good and it works. It's been running for quite some days and very stable. It's on a solid server box, fixed IP and all that sort of stuff. So it's here to stay. Okay, Mike. KD6 station. I didn't quite get the rest of the call sign. I think to overdo net control, and I'll be listening. Cheers, Mike.
Hey, John, ZLGTWS. Well, you and John, K6KD, doubled. He took you out. We've got very little of your transmission except for the very tail end. So I'm not sure what happened. I called on John, and there was a bit of some doubling. So I'm going to call on you now, and would you mind repeating what you had to say? And also, did you copy any of John's transmissions? He had a couple of questions. If you didn't, let me do this first. Let me ask for John to repeat his concern, and then I'll call on you to respond to that as well as repeating your transmission. So ZL2TWS, stand by. K6K. Well, let me back up. ZL2TWS, did you copy any of K6KD's traffic? ZL2TWS, go ahead.
Negative, Mike. So go ahead again with the original message. Standing by.
K6KD, go ahead.
Okay. I posted in the shout box a suggestion that last week it was Phil who we were talking about the reflector, that he get that added to the directory so no one else takes that number. We had quite a bit of discussion last week about available numbers, and he got a user ID on the X-Reflector forum, which is a prerequisite to posting to ask it to be added, but he never asked that it be added. And I was concerned that, and it's very much a long shot, but if somebody else came in to the X-Reflector and asked for that number, I'm kind of obligated to, it's kind of a first come first serve. So I'm quite perplexed as to why he obviously got the message because he's got a user ID on the X-Reflector forum, but why didn't go ahead and post in the thread requesting it to be added? So let me just pass it back to net control.
Okay, M1DOT recognized. ZL2TWS, go ahead.
Mike and John, yes, two Johns can get confusing, like two mics on at the same time. Hi. Okay, John, well, I do know that he went ahead with that, but he's probably not known to do any further steps. Bill's fairly new to D-Star, very keen, of course, and I've been setting up quite a bit of stuff and helping him. He's on the road right now on his way to Rotorua, where the conference is, so he's on the road. Get access to D-Star until he gets there. So I will send him an email message now asking him to follow up. Can I, John, take that posting that you've got on the shout box and just cut and paste that in and just say there's a question from the roundtable about following through and getting this XLX registered. Is that what I should do? Over.
K6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, you can do that, but it's probably just easier for you just to take care of it yourself if you'd like to. All you have to do is go to the boards. It's just in the shout box, xrefl.boards.net. There are directions at the top of the board in the header in red, which directs you to a template. You got to get a user ID first in order to post, just like this board. But it gives you directions to post, and tells you what information is requested and what's optional, and just put it in the thread. So you can do it yourself. It just take a few minutes, I think. Let me back over to you first, and then the mic.
Ridiculous, okay, thanks. I'm typing up something to him now. I won't do it myself. It's their project, and need to know exactly how it all works. They should go through the process themselves. So I won't bypass that in any way. I've just got the information up onto the shout box there, and let people know that they can connect to it, and it is working. So we'll follow that up. Thanks for the prompt, and I'll send a message now, and then Phil can deal with that probably fairly quickly, I think. So thanks very much, John, and over to Net Control.
All right, well, I hope that gets squared away. So ZFUTWS, what's the story on the New Zealand INZART National Conference? What is that? Explain. ZFUTWS, go ahead.
Mike, NZART is New Zealand Association of Radio Transmitters. That is the same as ARRL in America, or RSGB in Britain. So that is NZART is the national conference. So I guess ARRL has a national conference once a year in the States, and they elect new officers and have all sorts of forums and presentations and trading tables and general social activity and things like that. So that's what that's about, and it's in Rotorua this year. They have it in a different place, as they probably do in the States too every year. And there's a lot of people going. Apart from me, I'm going to be Net Control probably down here in Wellington. I'm in Wellington, which is the bottom of the North Island. Over to you, Mike.
Very cool. All right. Well, now we understand it. And, yep, Dayton just finished for ARRL's national conference, although I think there are some competing conventions that might challenge that, but undisputably, Dayton is the underlining that word, national conference. And now we understand about New Zealand and when they're going to have one. Sounds like fun. Hopefully we can get a report. Good luck on being Net Control. So I had N1DOT key up. Ken, did you have something for the round table, or was that just you just linking N1DOT? Go ahead. Well, no response from N1DOT, so I just I'll presume that he was keying up test, a link, or something like that. So no problem. All right. And I got the Hawaiian shirt thing now. I just wanted to make sure that you're not bad-mouthing Hawaiian shirts, because I love Hawaiian shirts. I've got far too many of them, and but I just if it's not t-shirt and shorts, it's a Hawaiian shirt and shorts. So I'm glad to see this as a positive thing. At least I presume that to be the case. All right, any follow-up to last week's topic? We had a few things at issue that didn't seem to get completely resolved. We were looking for some more, I guess, reports from Dayton. We got a few, but not a lot. And talked about some of the new gear that was available, or at least they're threatening to come out with some new gear. But anyway, anything related to last week's discussions that you'd like to update, make corrections to, swear that you'll never have anything to do with them again, anything along those lines, we'd like to take you now. So if you have something for us to report concerning last week, please key up now.
AA0R.
AA0RX. Go ahead.
AA0RX. Good evening to the net. Well, I had a blast in Xenia. I'm thinking about changing my call sign to Alpha Zero Really Xenia. But anyway, had a blast there with Andy, and didn't get to check in last time because I was doing some other stuff. But I will tell you, we went to this meet and greet kind of thing at the pizza place. We got there late because traffic was terrible, and we saw Ham, who was frequenting the bar over there, and bumped into him, and he had this cool hat on. It looked like a ham. So I said, hey, that's somebody we ought to talk to, see how good the presentation was. Anyway, so we went over to talk to him, and he was very knowledgeable and very friendly and courteous and just a great, just a humble guy, And I thought, man, this guy's cool. He has a lot of information, and we proceeded to take off and go back to our RV camp spot that evening and get out of Dodge, if you will, for the evening to the next day's event. So anyway, long story short is I bumped into K6JM, Mr. Mullen, and I'd never met him before visually, so I had no idea. and anyway, he was a great guy to talk to, and it was a lot of fun to meet him personally. So that may be not much to add, other than just a personal experience of sheer pleasure and joy, and a lot of fun, and serendipitous ham radio operations. That's all I have to add. AA0RX, back from Xenia and having a blast still. And I didn't get to check in last time. AA0RX back to net control.
Thanks for that report. Anyone else that was at Dayton didn't get a chance to tell us what they thought? We actually tried to dissect Dayton down from just general overview of the convention to specific things that they saw that they impressed them on the convention floor, trying to keep it as digital as possible, as well as responses to forums that they attended and the conversations they had. So didn't get a lot of response to that. We had, K6JM actually helped out a great deal, but I just was hoping that we'd have more stations that roamed around that just wanted to express what they thought about the convention in general, about some of the new products that were being promoted, the booths from some of the big vendors in digital, and what they learned as far as the vendors, the developers, as far as what they see the future of D-Star and digital modes are. So anyone else wish to make a report, help us out, live vicariously. This is where we do it. Please key up. All right, no takers on that. So, if something comes to mind on the Dayton and you'd like to, favor us with your thoughts, please feel free to key up and do so. All right, let me find out what's going on generally. Anyone have any news to report? Anyone see anything in the digital realm that the rest of us need to know about? This is a good time to take what you've stumbled upon in the past week that you might have, that you believe is, well, you found interesting yourself and might be of interest to the rest of us. But hear from you now. Please keep up.
Victor Echo 7, Lima Echo Echo. I hope I got a good enough signal.
We've got you, VE7LEE. Go ahead.
Hello there, Mike. Yes, I was at Dayton. I went to the ICOM booth. I spoke to Ray. No, I asked him the $10 question. ICOM is bringing out any 220 megahertz D-Star equipment to compute. And he says, no, because we need to sell 30, in order to get the price down, that's affordable, the hams will pay for it, we need to sell 30,000 units per year. And we need to do that for 5 consecutive years. So, since it's only 220s in North America, actually it's 222 I should be talking about, and it's not in Europe, it's not in Japan, it's highly unlikely that ICOM will be bringing out any 220 equipment. Back to you there, Mike. VE7LEE.
Well, that seems to settle that. Wow, now that is, what's more interesting to me is Ray Novak's representation that ICOM needs to be able to move 30,000 units per year for 5 years to make anything worthwhile. If that's their standard, I don't think we're going to see anything in D-Star that's new. That is a pretty high hurdle, I would think. All right, appreciate that. Well, anything else, Dayton, that intrigued you? VE7LEE, go ahead.
Well, yes, but it's not D-Star related. It has to do with Alternet satellite. Let me rephrase it. The Alternet transponder by satellite. So that's what I was impressed by, but it's not really D-Star related.
All right, is it digital? And I'm not sure I commented on UltraNet. Is that it? Maybe you need to spell it for us. Go ahead.
Okay, in the message, I am transmitting the URL. It's called Alternet, and that's a transponder used by the public. It's one-way communication only, and they interweave amateur-related messages in between the downloads, so you can communicate to it via APRS. And my good question is, maybe you could communicate using digital APRS via D-Star. Because basically you need to send a message to a certain location, amateur who will then make sure the message gets uploaded and will be down by 3 geosynchronous satellites around the world. So everybody gets the message. So that's basically in a nutshell what AlterNet is. So it's also used in APRS communication. Back to you there, Mike. EE7LEE.
Got it. And for those that were not able to read his message, because he did put it in the text message field, is outer, O-U-T-E-R, out, E-R, net. So it's outernet.is. So I have heard of that, and that is not D-Star or digital, but interesting that you found it interesting. All right. Appreciate you being with us, Ted. Anyone else with thoughts, comments, perceptions, questions, concerns about Dayton? Quick report on what you thought was important to you or interesting to you, especially if you happen to overhear somebody bad-mouthing D-Star or a direction that vendors are going to take digital modes next, where they see the future. Sure like to hear about it. Stations, please, Kia. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard on that, so let's get back to, I think, where we were, that asking for D-Star Digital News. As you know, we talk about not just D-Star, but open digital systems, not closed digital systems. And anything in that realm, any news that anybody's stumbled upon, I try to read the Yahoo groups, but I can't read everything. This past week, I have to tell you, I've been out of pocket, pretty much gone all week with all kinds of issues that just kept me away. And so I haven't had as much opportunity to review everything. Of course, a week's worth of Yahoo postings in all the groups I watch would cause most people's heads to explode if they tried to get them all together in one day. And I just in perusing didn't see anything that struck me as being dramatic, but then I don't have a email client that makes decisions as to what's dramatic and what isn't on my behalf. So I thought I'd rely upon all you guys that scour the Yahoo groups and the other various amateur-related groups that lean towards D-Star Digital, MMDVM, etc. for the latest. So don't keep it to yourself. Please key up now.
K6KD.
K6KD, go ahead.
I don't know if we talked about this last week, but let me ask you first. It's what Jonathan, the new version of MMDVM that he's come out with. He announced it in a thread in the MMDVM Yahoo group called Project Unification. So I don't think we talked about that last week, but let me just pass it back to you to double check.
We did not, but there's been a lot of, that has actually moved out of the MMDVM Yahoo group and is now spread out along the all kinds of digital Yahoo group threads. They usually refer to it as DMR Gateway. And it's, I hate to use that term because it irks me. I like unification better, but unfortunately that seems to be the common topical thread, but it relates to that discussion by Naylor, and we did not talk about it last week. Feel free to do so now if you choose. K6KD, go ahead.
Okay, well, the reason that's also referred to as DMR Gateway is he changed the software. What was previously all combined into MMDVM host is now split out to the basic MMDVM functions, and then along with DMR Gateway. And it's to be kind of consistent with the D-Star gateway, the IRC-DDB gateway, and the YSF Fusion, the YSF gateway. Aside from just restructuring the software, what it does is allows multiple DMR networks to be getting into DMR. But this is the open source part of DMR, which is, I guess that's good. It enables a repeater owner or a gateway operator to have multiple DMR networks active, so that it in the past, if you wanted to switch to an open source and XLX implementation of DMR to there from say Brandmeister or DMR Plus, you had to make changes in the INI file and restart the service. Now it is just a simple matter of changing talk groups that are assigned to the different networks, and that'll make it easier for people to have if they have a repeater that let's say oftentimes uses Brandmeister talk groups, to be able to easily go to open source XLX DMR, just by changing talk groups, which a user could do, and that doesn't require a repeater operator to do stuff with the server. So anyway, back to you, Mike. K6HKH, K6KD.
K6KD, you keyed up while I was talking. Back to you. Go ahead.
No, after I finished, I didn't hear anything from you, and I'm listening on both 310 as well as 002. So after a period of silence, I just came back with gave you a call just in case.
Oh, really? Well, I'm not showing any errors, and I was staring at the screen and unkeyed when you keyed up, and he did disrupt the audio to 310 and 555. So, okay, sorry about that. Well, anyway, I just was asking for stations who wish to comment on this. It's become a very common download. That is the program title of DMR Gateway. I agree with John's overview. It's a seamless way to communicate with XLX reflectors, and it's a better integration of use of the DMR radio to communicate with D-Star via XLX. There's a lot more to it than that, but it seems to be the hottest item for those that like they're MMDVM folks and are looking for the ultimately the best way to talk on one and be transcoded to the others. So we'll take comments from those that maybe have actually put DMR Gateway to use. What do you think about it? Or anyone that has more to add to the discussion that was started by K6KD. Please key up now. Well, okay, so maybe I should ask, does anyone else know what this is about? Perhaps this is too new. It's related to D-Star because it's one of the methods by which you can communicate D-Star to DMR. And it's, as John describes it also, and I'll stand to be corrected because I do not have it downloaded. Well, I'm going to do that, but, anyway, excuses on this end. So in any event, it's a one way of going from one talk group to another, as John described. You don't have to unlink, reboot, find a new profile, whatever it is you're doing. But it is software you have to download and implement. So I'm kind of surprised we don't have anyone that's actually given this a whirl. It seems to be all a hot tamale right now in the digital Yahoo groups. So anyone else, this is your chance. If it's no good, say so. If you think it's wonderful, like to hear about it, your experiences. You know what we like. And of course, we like people to do this, and that is key up. Do so now. All right, well, we'll talk about unification and this new native program called BMR Gateway. So, at another time, because it seems that it's not of great interest right now, maybe it needs to, foment. No, that's not the right word. Maybe it needs to percolate and brew for a while on digital systems, and see what people think. There have been trouble. There has been some problems with people trying to get it to work. There's been a lot of code that's been bannered about to get it to work on systems that weren't able to implement it as they had planned. So we'll talk about that again another time. All right, we're on news, D-Star and digital system news. Please, Kia. Well, I thought I'd pause a little bit extra long just as people are scratching their heads and hoping that could catch somebody. All right, I'm going to ask right now that we call for stations who have questions of any nature. We really haven't hit any major topics that would require us to limit it to what we've discussed thus far, but anything related to D-Star, Open Digital Systems, equipment, questions that could not be answered on other nets that you'd like to perhaps have answered here. This is the time for that. It's kind of like an open segment. We'll also take suggestions for topics, or for that matter, if you have a topic you'd like to have discussed. Sometimes questions are really topics and vice versa. We'll take that as well. Stations, please key up. All right, nothing heard. There was a post last month, and in fact it still is in the current discussions folder by K6JM, and I thought this was interesting that he found and had reported to him that WinDV in its setup is now having a gateway drop-down list that has each REF reflector listed twice. And K6JM goes on to guess that this is a result of the changes that was implemented by Robin as part of D plus 3.0. We talked about D plus 3.0 last week. That caused the call sign server, as Jim believes, to contain all the REF reflectors. And if your own dphost.txt file, which is the host file for D plus and WinDV, that also contains all the X reflectors, that would be the source of the doubling. And Jim proffers that if you remove the REF lines from the dphost.txt file, I'm not sure why you would do that, the problem is fixed. Now, it was my understanding that there was a different reason for having REF reflectors listed twice in WinDV. And I thought this would be something to talk about because this is the first inference or suggestion that D plus 3.0 would cause reflector duplication in the WinDV gateway drop-down list. Is that true? Has anybody checked this out? Or is there another cause for having REF reflectors listed twice? I've noticed that on and off for many, many years and have had people say that they see that. And people have questioned, which one do I pick? And we had several answers at the time, all of which have escaped my memory. So what do you think? Stations, please key up. Well, no response there. I will set this aside and go back and find the responses for this post, which is still in the current discussions folder under WinDV host file updates by K6JM, and try to find the comments as we've hit upon this from time to time, frankly, over the last 2 or 3 years, and see if that explanation squares with Jim's supposition, I think, although, maybe Jim has progressed this a little bit further, that it's something related to D plus 3.0. I don't know that it's bothersome, troublesome, or a problem to have multiple reflectors show up in the gateway drop-down box or in the quick key, pre-selected. Is it quick key? I don't look at this thing too often, but I'm pretty sure it's quick tune panel, quick key. No. In fact, that's a terrible thing to say. They call it quick key because we don't quick key here. It's quick tune panel. And if you go to program the quick tune buttons, sometimes you'll see double listings, not always. But if we can't get some help with this tonight, I will find out what the discussions were earlier and report on that, or maybe we can get someone, or maybe K6GM can join us and let us know if there is something to that. It's just an odd thing. And it would be troublesome to those that are new to WinDV. And the other issue was whether anyone got any news about an updated version of WinDV or if anyone's working on such. There was rumor of an updated version that emanated from Dayton. Wasn't able to track it down, but perhaps someone knows more. Stations, please key up. All right, not getting any help there. All right, what do you guys want to talk about? What's on your mind? Let's just make it plain. I'm not getting much of a response. I've had a couple stations that have jumped in there, but it's almost like it's football night and the playoffs, the basketball playoffs for tonight, the NBA. I don't know if there's some Trump tweet that has got everybody on an uproar, and I just because I trim that stuff off during the net, that's drawing everybody's attention away. Certainly, if there's some big news event that makes more sense to deal with that than listen to the roundtable, let me know. But otherwise, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? I'm not hitting much thus far. Let's hear from you. Stations, please key up. N1DOT. Let's welcome Ken to the roundtable. Go ahead. N1DOT, I got your key up. Were you trying to get into the roundtable or just checking things out? N1DOT, go ahead. Alright, nothing there. I bet Ken's just not aware that he's chunking, but that's alright. Alright, one more time. What's on your mind? What's troubling you? What is it about D-Star, the open digital modes that is troubling? Do you have some new gear? Is there something happening with OpenSpot? Is there something cool that has been released by Goose Van Doren, I think it is, and related to the EV Mega and that line of products? If you have something new in your hot little hands that's D-Star or digital related and you'd like to share, I'd like to have you key up. We're hurting here. Stations, please key up.
W6KBM.
Hello, Bob. W6KD. Go ahead.
I was busy at the beginning of the net when you were talking about the route call sign routing. Losing my mind here. Anyway, from what I've heard, there was a push at Dayton to demonstrate how well it works, and this sort of reminds me of it's like having General Motors install a texting device in the center of the steering wheel of their new cars and going to the car shows and showing everybody how well it works. Look at it can receive and send texts and and then it can project them up on the windshield or play. It gives you all kinds of fun things to do without any regard for what's going to happen when I take this gadget and put it on the road and start running over kids in school zones. It's the same kind of thing, Yeah, okay, I'll take it at face value that the call sign routing works, but what's it going to be like when you take it to the when you take it out and put it on the net? I mean, we know how call sign routing affects the network. I had a very well-known ham, a guy that works at HRO. It's a big D-Star guy that showed up in the middle of a QSO a couple times, during 1 week, and when I got cranky with him, call sign routing right into the middle of my QSO, it happened like 2 times in the same week. He said, well, they put it into D-Star. It's there for us to use. Yeah, well, the text on your steering wheel, I guess, it's there for you to use. It's a really bad idea. That doesn't make it a less bad idea just because ICOM has decided to embrace it as the next round of foolishness in their incremental upgrades to their radio line. If they think they're going to sell 30,000 radios a year doing this kind of stuff, I'm sorry, no, ain't happening. Unless the Japanese are a lot more interested in this, I guess. But it's frustrating. Let's just say that. In case you couldn't tell, that's how I feel about it. W6KD.
All right, appreciate that. We called for stations who might feel differently, and and I got to tell you, the reason that this was a part of 60 Seconds tonight was because there were stations that were talking positively about call sign routing, not on the Constellation, thankfully, but elsewhere, and it was generated because they purchased one of the 2 new ICOM radios, and they knew what D-Star was, but hadn't had a lot of experience with it, and were going crazy and looking for help and trying to find ways to get it to work, and I thought it would be worthwhile as a topic. Does anyone else, let's ask it this way, does anyone have an opposing view on call sign routing? That it is useful in some manner. Please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. All right, so again, I'm asking for you guys' help tonight. I admittedly did not have much time. I was gone all week. Let's just put it that way, and that didn't leave me much time to generate the topics. But still, without announcing I wasn't going to be around, I have zero emails, which is very unusual about things concerning either this net or as topics, more likely things that can be talked about. No messages, nothing posted in the shout box that I saw, and it just seemed to be odd that there just wasn't much going on. Maybe this is a big vacation week, I don't know. But I wanted to learn from you guys what you wanted to talk about, and so far I haven't heard anything. So I ask again, is there something on your mind? Is there something that you'd like to talk about? What is it that I haven't brought up or hasn't been initiated by another station in a way of a topic or a discussion, whether lengthy or short, whether highly technical or more basic, that you would like to have us discuss? If we can't do it tonight, we'll do it another night, but right now we have plenty of time to do it. We've only been running an hour, and I'm acting like it's midnight. So, well, West Coast time. So that was my cheerleading pitch. Stations, please, Kia.
K6KD.
K6, KD, go ahead.
Okay, well, if Mike, if we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, I could talk about my the tool that I wrote to work with RT System software to facilitate radio programming, especially using hotspots. Gotta confess, I brought it up a couple times in the past, and there was absolutely zero interest. Well, a couple people were interested in it, thought it was pretty good, but in general, there was absolutely zero interest. So maybe I shouldn't bring it up again, but I thought I'd just toss it out in case.
Well, don't make it seem like a threat, like we're going to get punished. I mean, and I have to admit that as things have been going thus far, you probably will have even less interest than you did last time. But I appreciate you at least willing to remind us all about your program, and maybe it needs a bit of a, what can I describe it as? A triumphant return to the arena, reminding people that it was not banished. K6KD, go ahead.
Okay, well, the functionality in a lot of these radio programming software, such as RT Systems, are oriented strongly towards repeaters. You're putting in a geographic area and getting repeaters that populate the files for programming your radio. But as more and more people are using hotspots, there's a gap. There's no easy functionality. So what this program does is you create two lists, a list of the various hotspot frequencies that you want to use, and it could be for individual hotspots, or it could be spare frequencies if you want to, if you need to change your hotspot from one frequency to another. If you're traveling and the frequency you are using becomes you get some interference. So anyway, in one area you specify the number of frequencies, the other, or the specific frequencies. Another area you specify the list of reflectors and modules, and they could be REF, XRF, DCS, and that of course includes XLX. And then what this program will do is it will create a comma-separated CSV file that can import into RT Systems, along with any existing, say, repeaters that you already have in there, to program your radio. So that, in a nutshell, is what it does. Back to you, Mike.
All right, I was hoping some stations might key up with questions, so I'll call for stations with questions. Please key up. There being none, thank you, John. Appreciate it. All right, who's next? Stations, please key up.
KE0AY.
KE0AYJ, welcome. Go ahead.
I was going to ask John if that was available for download, or where can I find that?
K6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. In the let me bring up in the Edge Reflector forum. That is, the URL is xrefl.boards.net. And if you go to the general interest discussion topics folder and scroll down about 7 links, there's Hotspot Programmer in beta. And I could make it a regular release. I still call it beta because I wanted more people to test it, but you can download it from there. So back to Andy. Let me see if you got all that. So back to you, and then to Nick.
Yep, I sure did, John. I scribbled it all down. Yeah, I'm a great beta tester. Just ask Yasu. I destroyed more of their equipment than anybody else, and they didn't follow my instructions, so no more Yasu equipment. Anyway, on another item there, Mike, I wanted to bring up something I don't know if anybody's aware of. Maybe perhaps they have seen it, but this is my first time seeing it. Bridgecom Systems now has a D-Star VCR repeater kit that adds D-Star to any one of their repeaters, dual mode, D-Star and analog. Didn't know if anybody was aware of that or if anybody had mentioned it before, but somebody was talking about 220, using D-Star on 220. And there might be the window of opportunity there on that. So, you get the 220 repeater, put this kit in it, and you're good on 1.25 for it. And everything else is available from them, and now in 6 crossband options. So they're getting carried away.
Appreciate it. Yeah, that the Broadcom seems to be the key to that. Well, a lot of systems are using to put 220 analog machines on their digital system, and not a lot of interest in that because there aren't, they believe, enough people with D74s in their hot little hands. But that's an often used way of doing it. And Broadcom, as you mentioned, has a lot of cool stuff to put things to use in repeater systems. So very cool. It's worth checking out. Thanks, Andy. Stations, please key up. Well, here we are in the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable with seemingly nothing to do. We're looking for stations with questions related to D-Star or Open Digital Systems. We're looking for topics that you can either start or maybe ask a question about that might inspire stations to join in and start a discussion. And anything that is puzzling that perhaps you'd like to get resolved. We won't accuse you of being unknowing, or we won't laugh at anybody that brings up something that we have discussed before, because at this point in time, we'll take just about anything. It's not self-directed tonight, as I explained. We're looking for your help and not just letting me carry on all night long, which I'm usually happy to do. Just, it takes time to put those things together. Tonight's not a tonight that I was able to get that done, and it's shame on me. But at the same time, it's always more interesting to hear from you guys, although I'm sure that next Thursday we'll be back into directed topics, and there may not even be a chance for taking questions, but that seems to be what people like to do, except for tonight. So think long and hard. What is it that has bugged you that you'd like to have answered, or maybe some stations key up? Please key up now.
NR9Q.
NR9Q. Appreciate you being with us. Go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm just going to wing it here. Never listened to this before. Probably had not have found it, and if it wasn't for Kilo 6 KD. And we had like a 3-hour QSO the other night. He was very informative, which unfortunately probably wiped out a lot of the questions I would have had if it wouldn't have been for speaking to him. But he answered a lot of questions for me. Pretty new here in the sense I did own the DB dongle, barely used it. I find myself using this a lot. I turn it on all the time. I now have an ID51 and the DB Mega. Running the DB, I'm going to say this right, hopefully D-Star, I think it's D-Star Commander it's called there. And been monitoring a 12 amp hour battery, just random information, but 12 amp hour battery. This is the second day, full day as of now. It's been running for 48 hours off of just one 12 amp hour battery, so I'm really surprised by that, and we'll see how far it goes. Looking for some more projects and some experiments, and maybe another device to look towards. Or right now, I just told you basically all the equipment I have, so I'm probably use some ideas, another project, something to tinker with, what seems to be of interest in the community. Back to Ned.
Well, Chris, appreciate you joining us, and it's just this is a bad night if you're just for those that are, checking us out for the first time, because it sounds like that I don't know what I'm doing, but usually we come up with a lot of topics. Some of them I work on, and others are suggested, and it covers all kinds of stuff, usually more technically advanced than not. And so tonight is just, one of those nights where we're short on things to talk about, and it seems that not a lot of people have things to talk about. And I really appreciate you keying out to at least tell us what you did, what you have, and being somewhat new to D-Star, but you got a DB Mega running D-Star Commander. So, given that the author of D-Star Commander is with us tonight, any issues that you may have with D-Star Commander you wish to ask of W6KD, or is everything just running smoothly? You got a good signal in R9Q. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I might be confused by between you guys' call signs there. Chatted with one the other night was Bob, and who's the other one, John? So, anyway, I don't know if they're both in here or not. I guess I'll have to figure out between the call sign similarities there, but, anyway, yeah, I did the programming of the radio. I now have it set up in memory to link to reflectors via Bob's device there. That works terrific. Being able to reboot and shut down the Raspberry Pi, that was definitely really cool. Especially since I plan to run this as a hotspot when I get to a location where my cellular network is actually of use, where I'm at now. I hear on the West Coast, it's just not all that great. Sprint is what I have, but it just doesn't work terrific out here. So anyway, when I get back home, I'll get that tested out. I need to get the configurations in there for Wi-Fi. I haven't got to try the commands yet, but there's commands programmed in my radio now to be able to jump to configuration 1, 2, or 3 in Wi-Fi. So that's yet to be tested. Everything seems to work in the programming. I think there's one thing, as soon as I think of it, there was one thing that either I don't have programmed in right or don't understand it. Oh, system info. What is that? Wasn't that supposed to send me a message via cell phone? I guess we'll turn back to net there, and then you can just direct the question there. But system info, I don't think I got any text or information. I thought I was supposed to spit out an IP. So anyway, back to net.
I see. So you got you talked to John and Bob, the KD brothers, on the Constellation during the week and wiped out any discussion you might have tonight. Well, I'm glad you did that because that is the thing to do. So, all right, anyone wish to help him on the purpose of system info, what occurs and why is that there? Stations, please key up.
W6KD.
W6KD, go ahead.
Hey, good evening, John. Good to see you here. Anyway, the sysinfo command will only work if you set up the hotspot to send text and or emails. And to do that, there's another step in there too that the documentation sort of walks you through that, and that's you have to set up an outbound mail agent. The way most people do it, the way that I've described in the docs is to set up a Gmail account that's used as a outbound mail transfer agent, which gets you away from lots of issues that you would have to deal with if the Pi itself were actually serving as a mail server. So what you do is your Pi actually sends the email to the outbound mail transfer agent, which for nearly everyone is a free account at Google. In fact, it's probably, even if you use Gmail, I find it to be a lot cleaner to just set up a second account that's used only by the Raspberry Pi as that outbound MTA. And then once you do that, yes, it will send emails and it will send text as well via the email to text gateway for your cellular provider. For example, usually it's something like your cell phone number at txt.att.net or at vtext.com for Verizon or something like that. But to make it work, you have to both enable it in the configuration, and you have to have in fact, when you're configuring it, you have to feed it the MTA information anyway. So it's possible, I would think, that maybe you didn't set that up when you did the setup there. There's one other possibility too, is there's starting about a year and a half ago, there's a security setting. You have to lower the security settings on Gmail on the account in order to allow it to send emails out through the MTA. And that's one more good, in fact, probably the best reason for just having a completely separate account, because you can dial down the security settings and if you're not using it for anything else, it's a big so what of the security department. So anyway, back to the net W6KD.
Thank you, Bob. NR9Q, any follow-up? NR9Q, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Bob. And as always, he's very descriptive there. He seems to paint the picture for me anyway. I think I understand the problem here. I tried to skip the email portion and doing the outbound mail, and even messing with that, I was just going to try to do text message, because obviously it's easy, and if I'm doing a hotspot and I'm on the road or I'm moving, text message is nice. So what I did is went to text message, and then I put my phone number at sprintpcs.com or wherever it was. I put that in, but it's not going to work unless the email portion has also been set up for the outbound, which in turn allows it to send it to that phone number at Sprint PCS. So both is needed, correct?
W6KD, go ahead.
Well, you do not have to enable email. They're handled they're handled separately. But the text feature in DStar Commander uses email on the outbound side to do the text. So you can turn text on and email off, but you still have to have that MTA set up. So because the Raspberry Pi is actually using email in both cases outbound. In one case, it's sending it to a regular email address. In the second case, it's sending it to an email to text gateway, which will ultimately end up as a text message on your phone. But yeah, the Raspberry Pi is sending an email in both cases. So you have to have that MTA set up. But you can turn email off and text on, and that works just fine. It won't send you an email; it'll just send the text to the gateway. But yeah, in both cases, though, the MTA, the Gmail account is a requirement.
So it's the answer is yes, but you can turn one off. I have mine set up as Bob described, email off, SMS or text messaging on, because I found that if I'm anywhere other than at a place where I can get the email, I just soon have it send the text to my phone, especially if I'm playing with or if it's in the hotspot in the car or some other location. I mean, I got hotspots all over the place. There's they look like rat traps sometimes. People think they're going to snap at them when they're just a hotspot, and still, I'd rather just pull the phone up and look at the text message right there. So it does work anyway. So NR9Q, did that get it for you? Go ahead.
Yeah, that does clear it up. The only question I had was the phonetics on what type of email, outbound email. I can just say in like November, so it'll be like NPA or NTA. I guess I don't know what he was stating there, but the type of email service to set up through Gmail on this and that. Back to net.
W6KD clarification. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's nothing really special about it. You just set up a standard consumer account on Gmail, and if you've already got one, you can set up a second one. And the only thing different about it is that you do need to lower the security settings, and I don't have the details right here in front of me. But because some changes they made a while back make it so that and by the way, MTA stands for Mail Transfer Agent. That's the function that the Gmail account is serving, but it's not a special account. The only additional configuration beyond just a regular generic Gmail email account is that security setting, which will allow lower security clients to work with the program. Certain older web clients and that kind of stuff that don't use the most modern security techniques or whatever are locked out unless you explicitly go in and tell it in the security settings to allow that to happen. And then once that's done, the Gmail account just serves as a when your Raspberry Pi sends the mail, it sends it to Gmail sort of as a proxy, and then actually it sends it to Gmail, and Gmail acts as a proxy to send it out to the rest of the world. So you don't have to have you don't have to configure an email server on your Raspberry Pi, which is, a lot of times there's issues with, IP addresses and port forwarding and all kinds of other stuff that can make it a real, hairball sometimes to set up. So you just set up the email account on Gmail, and then no matter where you're at, it just kind of works. So hopefully that explains it. Back to the W6 Kitty.
Alrighty, Bob. Appreciate it. Yeah, Google upped the ante and wants everybody to have the most secure setting, and you don't want to do that. And I was trying to look to see what exactly Google, what to expect when you set that up, and I'm having trouble finding it because here we go. Let's see if no, that's not it. Well, anyway, I had it set up for not well. First of all, I got to turn off the double authentication. That's going to stop you getting your tracks. And then you want to go to the next level down. That is allowing, as Google calls it, to be less secure. But without that, you're not going to get it to work properly. It's really, frankly, not easily understood. But I can't find I printed that document out. I'll find it and I'll post it on the shout box. But maybe this is it. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. For the Gmail security block, and you want to turn off the two-step verification, and you want to turn on, quote, less secure app access. And upon turning off two-step verification in Google, Gmail actually, and turning on less secure app access, under Google Security, it's not under Gmail, it says, well, I guess it would be. Yeah, Google email. Anyway, you do that and you'll have success. It worked for me when they Google ramped up their security and wanted everybody to have two-step verification, although that's still optional. They force you to choose, quote, less secure app access, and then make it seem as if you're going to open your Gmail account to the world, which is not true. It just allows third-party apps like DStar Commander to issue a request for a text through the Gmail account out to the SMS phone number or whatever device or access you use. I don't know if that made a lot of sense. I'm reading off of some notes, but that's what it seems to be. M6HKH, anyone else have anything further on this topic for the Thursday night DStar Roundtable? Glad to hear from you, please, Kim. Alrighty, so we're back to square one, I think, which is looking to see what you guys would like to talk about. What do you have in mind? What have you read in a Yahoo group that makes no sense that you'd like to see have some sense made of it? Is there something that you heard on an earlier podcast, perhaps, that you're still scratching your head over? Let's get it out in the open now. Please, Kia.
W4GM.
I have W4GMI and KE0AYJ. First, we'll say hello to David. W4GMI. Go ahead.
You guys kill me. How? You jog my mind on something I thought about during the week and tried, and I said, I'm going to ask these guys, and there I would go forget, and somebody comes up with a topic that just jogs my memory. I have recently changed my call sign. Of course, it went from KI4IKM to W4GMI, and getting back to the texting.
when I changed it to W4GMI, would not take it. It has to be 6 characters, so I added the number 1 on the backside of W4GMI1 at gmail.com, and my text quit working. So I had to go back, and I left my KI4IKM account open. Incidentally, that's my junk mail. I get everything I could possibly ever see, from Viagra to anything. You just wouldn't believe comes across that. And the W4GMI1 at gmail.com doesn't get anything. But when I changed on my email for texting and everything, it quit when I had the number 1. I wonder if anybody can answer why that is. But anyway, I had to divert back to KI4IKM so they keep giving me texts. And I'm wondering if it may be the security deal, but every time we tried to set somebody up, it had a number on the end due to 5 characters versus 6 characters. It quit. So my question is why? W4GMI.
Gmail experts, why did this happen? Please key up. Well, not surprisingly, there are no responses. It's kind of been the way it is tonight. I can tell you that I have Gmail accounts, and I did make note of the fact that if you are unhappy with your current Gmail ID, and I can see where you could use, a call sign. I've got a call sign Gmail email address. But what Google says to do is you don't change it. You simply add another account. And once you establish the second account, you delete then the first. But if you try to change an existing email address, you're going to have problems. That I know. So you can have, without harm, as many Gmail accounts as they'll let you open. It might be something that requires you to put a dot and something else behind the call sign, perhaps your first name. I know that's a common thing to do. But if Gmail now has a minimum of 6 digits as the email, header name, such as your call sign, I have yet to hear about that, but it does make sense, I guess. I haven't seen it. And I don't understand why the resolution in adding this account, this is, again, not changing. You don't want to go in there and wipe out KI4IKM and try to replace it with W4GMI, whatever. That is, Google's going to balk because of the way that they see as primary and secondary accounts. But you can easily, once you have 2 or more accounts, redesignate which one's the primary. That's easy to do. You can do it on your cell phone. And then, if you just, have to get rid of the old Gmail account with the old call sign, you can delete it. But you have to designate the new one as the primary after creating it. So, with that having been said, who thinks differently? Please key up. Well, assuming that no one's going to dispute, my view of things with Gmail, W4GMI, what do you think? Go ahead.
Well, you know what? It's working. I'm getting my text with KI4IKM. It acts as a buffer for all the trash that comes out into the world. I think I'll just leave it like that because I have not figured out every time we add a 6 character as a numeral or something like that, it quits working. So we'll just leave it at KI4IKM and just keep doing it that way, and it works out. Over.
Did you try to create a second account at W4GMI, just plain Jane, nothing, no ups, no downs, leaving the KI4IKM in place when doing that? W4GMI, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, we tried to do it W4GMI, which is just 5 characters, and it wouldn't take it, so there wasn't any other option other than leaving KI4IKM open, which is fine with me, because, I changed my email address on QRZ and all that, and all my important stuff comes in, and I'm still getting all the XYL emails to the other ones, so I don't know, if you join all these Yahoo groups, you really get some crazy stuff. Of course, I've had to stop some of that, but that KI4IKM's been out there for years and years, and did I say how many years? So it's subject to get all kinds of junk, but it works quite well with the texting on my hotspots and my repeaters and all that. It's running the RCDDB over.
Well, as long as it works. I mean, I wouldn't delete an email account that you've got embedded in Yahoo unless you're going to update your email account with Yahoo first. I mean, if you just start, if you remove your Yahoo email account without logging in and changing it in Yahoo, you're going to get into some real deep trouble, like you won't be able to get back in again. But, what's the harm? If that's where all your junky stuff, and I don't know that you meant junk email, but it all goes. Good for you. Of course, if I had an account like that, I'd just delete it. But then again, I'd make sure it wasn't being used by something important. So I could get back into whatever it is that uses that email, and when it finds out it doesn't exist, and Yahoo's one of the worst. Especially if you drop AT&T or you drop one of the providers that gives you Yahoo, and then it's just I don't like Yahoo, but it is what it is. All right, David, appreciate the question, and if anyone else has a suggestion for him, don't email him, just key up here and let us know. KE0AYJ, go ahead.
Yeah, once again, Mike, good evening, and to everybody else on the net there. One of the things that we could possibly talk about tonight, if not, it could be tabled till the next, going around next Thursday, be great. I was sitting there listening to Bob talk, and I was reminiscing about last Friday night. He followed me across country on my little journey to Denver, and never seen so much lightning, a lot of lightning, and other little inconsequential pieces of storm. But lightning protection seems to be a major topic this time of year. And I've had these discussions before on various tech nets, locally and, on HF. But it seems like everybody has different ideas and different procedures and everything for an LPS, a lightning protection system. And there are actual companies out there that do professional installs with heavy duty stuff and do it certified and bonded and everything. I think that'd be a good topic to head up on this time of year. However, it might be a little bit late in the season to just be starting a project up there in the middle of a storm. But yeah, I was in the middle of everything last Friday, and though I don't need lightning protection on a truck, it's something to think about and something I wish I wasn't in the middle of. I will turn it back to Net for any comments on that and possible reiteration. K0AYJ.
Well, that's always a good topic. One of the topics I have pending for someone to come back for vacation is to talk about proper grounding techniques, both those for used professionally as well as what amateurs should, expect to do at a minimum. And but the options that are out there, there's some technology in grounding and fusing that I hadn't heard of. Now, that's of course different, but it's part of lightning protection. We did talk about that like 2 weeks ago, but it's always good for a topic discussion. Now when you're traveling and lightning, is going like crazy, was you concerned about being on the air in your car with lightning, or are you talking about what the problem that presents itself to most of us is lightning, in or around our home, as such as what W6KD described, when we had, if not a direct, but a very, very close near miss, and what went crazy. That's a topic that could carry on for hours. So anyway, more specifically, what's your interest in this, and so I can narrow this down as opposed to just a broad band, a broad, uh, overly broad topic of just lightning. KE0AYJ, go ahead.
Well, I've had various instances like that where people brought something to my attention, and while it was a concern of mine last Friday about near miss, near misses and things, and what was happening within 300 yards of me and things like that. EMP that comes out of some of those storms, you don't have to have a direct strike on today's sensitive equipment, with the micro miniaturized circuits such as the PI and things like that. A near miss on a vehicle, you got some buildup on the vehicle, and EMP is still there simply because it's ambient. It doesn't care if you're grounded or not. It's free wave. If you're grounded somewhat, you might have a little bit of affordable protection, but not enough to really circumnavigate that. I have heard instances where the PI quit working. And I toasted a pie, not deliberately, it just up and quit working, and I was thinking about that, and that wasn't but maybe 2 months ago, month and a half ago, something like that. I had to get a new one. It just up and quit, period, totally dead. And it was right after a storm that I noticed it, and it was a pretty vicious storm, so that's why I brought that up, and then it reminded me again of it last Friday. Hoping it wouldn't happen, because that was basically it for communications for me out where I was at. There was no repeaters anywhere nearby that I was hitting. So, I looked at that and I thought, well, okay, that might be a good discussion, but lightning protection in a vehicle, almost impossible to do, but we're talking generally around the house, and the home, with the newest, latest, greatest, so to speak, back to net.
Well, see, that's an interesting question, because I don't think we've discussed lightning protection from a mobile standpoint, short of tying some chain or a grounding strap, and having it drag on the pavement, the asphalt, and sparking off, as I'm sure it would, as any metal would when scraped at high speed against asphalt or concrete. Short of that, I don't think I've heard of a grounding or a lightning protection scheme for mobile. Is there such a thing, or is it just simply turn your radio off? Anyone have any thoughts? Stations, please key up.
W4GMI.
All right, you got KE0AYJ keying up again, and W4GMI. I'm going to take you in reverse order. W4GMI, go ahead.
Well, I don't have this elaborate system, but I do put the surge protectors in line with coax on the repeaters, and do some heavy bonding on the racks and everything. At home, when I have a storm come up, such as when I leave, I'm going to leave for a couple of days. Now, this sounds crazy, but Grandpa taught me well. When I was a kid, they had the old 300 ohm twin lead come down with a big old alligator clip, and they would hook that thing on the back of the TV coming from the antenna. But when the lightning storm come, he would take a mason jar, which I'm kind of curious if lightning hits, how much is it going to shatter that mason jar. But I still use that effect, believe it or not. I'd hook my coaxes and all that good stuff, and I unplug my power and keep that away from the coax. But I've gone one step further. I've taken a tennis ball and cut a hole in it. And if you'll ever notice, it's pretty hollow in the inside. So I'll stick my coaxes down in it and the tennis ball hole, and then I'll put that in the mason jar. That's kind of a poor boy way. I'm not a high-tech type of fella when it comes to it, and I just pray. W4GMI.
Well, that's a new one on me, taking the coax terminals after being disconnected from the equipment and putting it inside a tennis ball and inside a mason jar or clear mason jar. Hey, whatever works. Maybe Grandpa was right. Maybe it's actually a common practice and it just escaped my attention. Thanks for that. KE0AYJ. Go ahead.
KE0AYJ. Yeah, I've heard of that one before too, myself, on a different TechNet over in Colorado. We discussed that at length, and as far as question that I would throw out is, well, where's the path to ground? What's it going to do, and how far is it going to go, and what's the effect that mason jar is going to have when the lightning hits anyway? Will it shatter the mason jar? Will the coax explode, or will it find its own path? Anybody that's experienced a lightning strike nearby or anything, I've seen damage it's done, not just to the metal rebar inside of like corn silos and things like that, but I've also seen what it does to cement and things along that line. So it's something totally different when that happens. Mason jars I'd stay away from. I prefer ground at the house. An EMP, even if you unplug the radios, the power supply, disconnect everything altogether, and you can put it in the box even. EMP can get you if it's close enough, and it's a buildup within the radio, whether it's connected or not. So I've unplugged power leads and all sorts of stuff, and had not old equipment, but fairly recent equipment from the military that I've used for testing to see what it does. But I got sick and tired of that thing turning off my radio every time lightning hit within 25 miles, or detected static lightning that we basically can't see or hear. That's one of the things I worry about. Mason jar, no, I can't believe it, but Grandpa might have been right, like you said. We'll have to wait and see. KE0AYJ.
Well, that is a debate. There are articles that suggest that. I don't know. The EMP on a unconnected boxed piece of electronic equipment. I'm not sure that lightning would produce sufficient EMP to affect that kind of equipment, but I'll take your word for it for now. But you either switch it all to ground, good ground, or you disconnect everything and pray. And, you can't put everything to ground. Well, I guess you could, but you don't put your equipment to ground. you're talking about the most likely way of the lightning entering your shack, which is through the antenna, or exposed coax, or having the coax or whatever portion of the antenna and its structure and the coax run, in proximity to a metal device or metal, who knows what. Could be rain guttering that the lightning, gets and then jumps. That's an easy thing to do. And there's a lot of pitfalls in running coax that you don't think about when dealing with and worrying about lightning. But it's an interesting discussion. I'm still interested in this mobile thing because I haven't read anything about protecting yourself in a car. That is, I understand. Don't drive your car in a lightning storm if you can avoid it. But setting that nonsense aside, trying to protect your radio gear when in a car, should you want to talk, driving through a lightning storm, sort of just turning it off, or pulling over and throwing a ground down to your car, which, quite frankly, if you can do that, if the lightning storm was that bad, I'd run and hide, but still. I don't know that there's a good answer to that besides just turning everything off and just keep on driving. If you're concerned about nearby lightning strikes. But I don't remember reading anything along those lines. Pretty interesting question. All right, anyone else have any thoughts on this? Stations, please, Kia.
W6KD.
Go ahead. W4GMI and W6KD, W4GMI, go ahead.
Well, he talked about grounding to the house ground. I've been in the industry, in the telephone and the cable TV and the internet industry for years and years and years, which we do ground to the neutral outside on the meter base. But let me tell you guys, when 50,000 volts hits, you think anything's going to survive it? Let's be for real. I've seen lightning hit that ground and just blow it slap out and keep going. It follows the weakest point. Of course, if you have a ground, you don't want to be in a sharp 90 because it goes straight out like an elbow. You want a good sweep in it and everything. But like I said, when 50,000 volts hits, good luck if you got something that's going to protect against it. W4GMI.
Yeah, I think that, the cable satellite, utilities where they simply run the ground to the utility base or box, or they, and that's what most of them do. They just screw the ground to a piece of pipe that's going into the ground that's usually coming from underground utility cabinet or going up to an outdoor utility panel, and that's it. And it's just, sometimes it's only like a 12 gauge piece of copper. There's no way that a nearby lightning, that isn't going to do anything. That's mainly for transient voltages and trying to protect against, cars that are driving too close to your house or something. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's more because the code says you have to do that, even though it probably doesn't have any effect. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna surmise safety in a vehicle is probably similar to lightning safety in an aircraft, which I have a fair bit of experience with. And lightning strikes on airplanes happen all the time. It's very common, and it's also very rare to have any significant damage done, to the systems on an airplane when lightning strikes, and that's because the metal, it's Faraday, it's a Faraday cage basically, so the current is dissipated and flows on the outside of the the metallic, the skin of the airplane or the frame of the vehicle or whatever. And somewhere I remember reading that if you're in a lightning storm in a vehicle, you're actually pretty safe. It has nothing to do with rubber, insulating you from the lightning or anything, because just the same as we use HF radios in vehicles, there's still capacitive coupling from the vehicle's body to the ground underneath, and that certainly is you consider the amount of voltage required to bridge the air from several thousand feet in the air at the cloud to the ground. Those last few inches from your vehicle to the pavement are kind of trivial in comparison. Was it 50,000 volts per inch or something in dry air? So millions of volts to get that volt down to the ground. And anyway, so yeah, the vehicle, as long as it's a vehicle with a frame, with a metal body, or even a frame, I think would probably do the job. You're okay, as long as you're not touching metal stuff in the vehicle. Like holding a microphone in your hand that's connected. Because if you make yourself part of the current path, it doesn't take a whole lot of amperage at those kind of voltages to fry your own internal circuitry. So that's kind of my take on it. Vehicles are relatively safe. You don't hear a lot about people getting hurt in a vehicle by lightning, and I suspect it's the same effect as for an airplane. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let me just get it.
So if your radio is a mobile and you have an external antenna that is grounded to the exterior metal surface of your car, whether it's a clamp on or you do an NMO mount or hole drill, if lightning hits that antenna as the highest part of the car or nearby, you're screwed, whether the radio's on or off. Do you agree or disagree, W6KD? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, if you take a direct strike on the vehicle, it all depends on where the current goes through. I've seen airplanes that got hit with that became part of a cloud-to-cloud flash, basically. Cloud-to-cloud lightning strike or lightning bolt, and you'd have a burn, small burned hole in the skin on one wingtip, and another one likewise on some other point on the airplane, the fuselage or the other wing or something, and but it travels around the electronic equipment mostly. I've been hit by lightning a bunch of times in airplanes, and never lost radios, never really lost anything. Just a real bright flash and a boom, and a couple minutes of introspection, looking at the instruments extra close to see if something unhappy is going on, and never did. And if you look at our modern airplanes, as computerized as they are, you look at the Scairbus, the European Scairbus, Airbus, it's all computerized. It doesn't even have mechanical linkages to the flight control. You lose all the computers on that airplane, and you can't fly it anymore because they're, it's not like a Boeing with, backup cables and hydraulic actuators and the like. It's all computerized, and they have yet to have one fall out of the air because of a lightning strike. So, yeah, I don't think it's anything to worry about, but if the electrons follow the right path, yes, it will spook your radio, and maybe you too.
Well, we certainly don't want to be smoked out. We want to be safe. Of course, these discussions seem to be more concerned with saving your equipment than saving your life. And, maybe that is the priority in amateur radio, but, here on the West Coast, the lightning that we get, which is infrequent, is not even remotely close to the stuff seen in the Plain States, Texas, the South. I have never seen lightning like that before in my life when I've traveled. I don't know. I didn't like it, frankly. And it was scary stuff. And watching the lightning that goes along with the tornadoes and some of the terrible weather that we've had going across the central South. And that kind of, we don't get anything like that out here, but I pucker up and get really concerned about station grounding. Here, occasionally you get some thunderstorms that drift through, but and every now and then a palm tree sets on fire, but that's usually about as close to the ground as lightning normally comes. It hits the palm trees that are way above the rooftops. You don't see lightning arresters on buildings except for perhaps, the very tallest in downtown LA, perhaps skyscrapers, although, LA's skyscrapers aren't even skyscrapers when compared to cities with real skyscrapers in the East Coast and some in the South. So anyway, enough of that babbling from me. Station, please, Kia.
W4GM.
W4GMI. Go ahead.
Okay, I guess we're going to get off of lightning. I've got a question. I'm running the Maryland D-Star image on my PAS for my repeaters and hotspots and all that. And I found we tried to use the RCDDB remote and do the password deal in it and all that. And I went into the Maryland and changed the password. Of course, it don't tell you what the old password is, but I had found out that it stops my scheduler and a couple of other little things. There's another little deal. It looks like a radio in there. You click on it and click a reflector or a repeater on demand or whatever. It stopped that. Does anybody know what the old password is so I can put it back in there and get life back to normal? Over. That was in the remote setting on the software.
All right, N6HH. W4GMI, we doubled, so maybe you had something else to add. You double took out my audio out away from the other, the audio path was interrupted to the oscillation. No biggie. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I double keyed on that, hoping I get back in, but I do apologize. This is in the remote setting on the RCDDB software. I don't know if Marilyn or anybody else goes there and changes that, but I thought that was the idea to use it with the remote RCDDB remote, where you can do it with your tablet or your Android phone or whatever. But we've changed the password and it quit all the other functions, such as where it schedules to start up a repeater such as this one right here, the reflector. We've got it set up to do that every week and everything, but on another repeater we changed the password in there and it stopped all the functions in it, and I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong there. W4GMI.
You mean the default password in IRC-DDB remote? Is that right? Go ahead.
That is correct. As long as I've been in the business, I should know that, but I have failed to recognize that. So if anybody knows that, I'd appreciate it. W4 GMI.
Stations, please be up. All right. Well, somebody with IRC-DDB remote has an app. Can you? And assuming that you haven't changed the password, can you pop it open and tell us what the password is? Please key up now. Well, nobody keyed up. I have IRC-DDB remote that has not been used or touched on an Android device that I seldom use. I will tap the net, fire that up, fire up IRC-DDB remote, go to password, grab it, and call you. How about that? W4GMI. But it'll be a little bit after the net.
That's fine. Mike, I'm sorry. Have we solved all the problems in D-Star? I mean, there's no I don't know where the participation's gone. I mean, it used to boom and everything. What is going on here? And I'm not scolding anybody, but have we solved all the issues now?
I don't know. I can tell you that tonight is a bit different because I did not have much preparation time this week, and but I also didn't get the usual number of emails and other communications with suggestions or questions or thoughts, and I don't know how to account for it. Ordinarily, I can scrounge for topics. And that's normally what I would do anyway. As you guys know, I usually just pound through topics, and if people want to talk about it, fine. If they don't, fine. And then we save questions and answers for usually later on in the net. Tonight, being more unprepared than normal, we had a few things to talk about. But I have to admit that there has been a discussion during the week on the Constellation about the lack of new business in D-Star. And there isn't really much new business in D-Star. All the new business has been in other digital modes that wish to communicate with D-Star and vice versa. And while Dayton and other activities, Tokyo, Hamfair, etc., generate new interest in new D-Star whatever, there just hasn't been, much since the D74 was released. Of course, we have these two new ICOM radios, which I'm still can't fathom why they would ever make them or expect to sell 30,000 units per year for 5 years. I'd be shocked if that happened. But then again, that's a worldwide figure, so I don't know. But I think it is a problem in that there isn't, D-Star's mature. And, there just isn't much groundbreaking news to talk about. On the other hand, it seems to me there's a lot to talk about generally in the digital realm. And, some nights, as you know, if you listen regularly, I have stations, piled up trying to get in. Other nights, I have to threaten people to key up to do anything. So tonight's different. So you have to sit tonight aside. But D-Star discussions are getting fewer and far between. And I struggle every week as I look for D-Star topics, and for that matter, open these, open digital systems. Just a second. I struggle looking for topics because many of it is just the same old thing, or we've already talked about it. And I always find something interesting to talk about. There's just something, you look hard enough, you're gonna find things. And I get help from, stations that email me with suggestions and observations. But much of it though is just regurgitation of the same old thing. It's just that it might be of interest to those that are new to join us. So I don't know. Well, I guess I'm agreeing with you, David. I don't think it's dire, but there just isn't the breaking news that we used to have every week in D-Star, and that I agree with you on. W4GMI, go ahead.
Well, you do strike another conversation out. You mentioned the two radios that Icons put out. I just can't. I mean, they got good features on it, but I cannot see spending that kind of money just to make a hotspot out of a radio when you gotta have another one. But I can go and buy a hotspot a lot cheaper than I can buy that radio. But anyway, so be it. Okay. I appreciate you honestly, sincerely answering that question about where's the interest going. W4GMI.
K6KB.
Well, in K6KD recognized, I don't think that there's a lack of interest, but there is a change in, let me think of a good way to describe it. There's a change in the dynamics of what people expect from D-Star, how to go to D-Star, and the concept of multi-mode. And that has caused people to pause and reflect on, do I want to continue to invest and worry about D-Star, or do I want to go to a different mode and then just engage D-Star? And you can even love D-Star, and you can despise DMR. But there's an economic story here, and that drives some of it. But I could talk about this for hours. I'm not going to do that. K6KD, go ahead.
Okay, well, Mike, I think the situation is kind of staring us in the face, and I think it does involve multi-mode, and specifically upcoming ways of accessing our wonderful D-Star infrastructure. Up until recently, I was not a fan of DMR at all because it was a closed system. And when DMR first became exposed on the amateur radio presence and people jumped on it, I thought it was, from my own perspective, I thought it was kind of ridiculous because we had just gone from a closed source D+ and the REF reflectors and having to cater and kowtow to the U.S. Trust to an open system, and then yet DMR comes along and people are jumping onto the DMR Mark, which is the most autocratic closed system you can imagine. And I thought it was ridiculous, and it was one mode versus the other. When Brandmeister came along, it was better. They weren't autocratic, and apparently were more receptive to linking different things, but it was still not an open system in that you can't set up your own server and experiment with it. Now that it's not here yet, it's still in alpha to beta, but with DMR being implemented in the XLX, we do have a completely open system. Not only that, but we're on the precipice, I shouldn't try to use a big word, of having, it's not one mode versus the other, but I think of it as another way of accessing D-Star, And when we have a major manufacturer like ICOM, let me reset real quick. When we have a major manufacturer of, ICOM, basically giving us the gesture and aligning themselves with the worst part of D-Star, in other words, the closed source REF, and yet on the other hand, we're on the beginnings of ways of using these DMR radios, not just for talking on DMR, but as a way of getting into our D-Star infrastructure. We're not there yet, but it's just a matter of a few weeks away. That is the exciting thing, and I think that together with ICOM's tactic, it's a kind of a push-pull. That's where the excitement is, and I think we'll still have our great D-Star infrastructure, but we'll have a lot more ways of accessing it, and with good quality, inexpensive radios. Back to you.
Well, I agree and I disagree. You've described a thesis of the future of D-Star as we use it now, not so much the reason for what sometimes seems to be a lack of interest and the lack of questions, the lack of discussions and topics. Although admittedly, people come here to hear the topics that are pre-selected, and again, tonight's an unusual night because I just could not get much done. I'll give the excuse again. I was gone all week, and I probably should have just called someone else up and said, hey, I'm going to be gone. Can you do this? But then, nobody ever answers my phone calls because they think that I'm going to ask them to do this and that. So, but I have trouble getting people to talk to me on the phone. Anyway, that's why I like ham radio. But still, that doesn't explain, though, given the increasing number of nets where the discussions of D-Star topics does not generate hours of discussion. It generates minutes of discussions, and I think that's what David is getting at. Because when you think about it, given the number of stations that are connected, and tonight there's fewer than normal. Last week, it was pages and pages. And it could reflect vacations. It could be bad weather. It could be who knows what. But still, I agree with you, but that's where things are going to be, not where they are now. I realize that people are working on it now, but I don't get the sense in reading through the various groups and posts and websites and blogs that people are just dropping what they're doing in D-Star and saying, hey, I need to move over here. Are there a number of people with hotspots that have MMDVM, running MMDVM and an operating system and making their equipment accessible and using DMR radios to connect and then, through or OpenSpot, for example, and then talk on D-Star? Sure, there are plenty of them. But, and where we're going to end up at, and I'm a believer as you are, that is where the future lies, but it doesn't answer what's going on today. But otherwise, what you say is true and is ultimately going to come true, but it takes a while to get there. ICOM is not making things better for us. That is a fact of today. Comments? Please key up.
K6FED.
K6FED. Welcome. Go ahead.
Yes, M6HKH in the group. A lot of this stuff, and I say it jokingly, we have to attribute some of the challenges that we're running into to people like Bob W6KD and John K6KD, as well as some of the other guys. You guys have made D-Star too easy. when it comes to programming radios and programming the pies. You know, it's always been a desire to have a ham's input when it comes to designing radios. But I think what's happened is you guys have taken it a step further, and instead of designing the radios, you've just basically helped design the infrastructure, meaning the software and stuff like that that's being put out in the field. It's just making it so easy that a lot of the hams now, all they do is they go get a piece of software, install it on the radio, and then there's no questions asked. And I think that's it's not that D-Star is waning or that there's a lack of interest, because I hear them every day, and I usually set up about 3 to 4 people a week on D-Star. So, but because of the fact that I got a D-Star Commander image and some RT system software, I don't I don't have to ask a lot of questions. Over.
Oh, that's a point well taken. I mean, we've made it easier, we being collectively those that develop and D-Star equipment, author software. There's no question but that OpenSpot has made it too easy and has made it relatively inexpensive. And, there's nothing. You take a DV Mega and load up MMDVM and some, an operating system, and you're everywhere you want to be and everywhere you don't want to be. No question about it. And it's no secret that the so-called roundtable crew, that I think collectively we are known as Kings of Digital, are preparing for the future. You've heard little bits and pieces of the work that's being done. You hear people talk about the cutting edge on, other systems. We're far beyond the cutting edge. In fact, the cutting edge is already cut up and chopped and thrown away. We're into the surgeon knives, and it's all in preparation. We try to think months and months and months ahead, and it could be our own undoing. And making D-Star, while it still may be the love of your life and the best digital mode that you can find around, and the infrastructure for D-Star is second to none. And the XL, let me back up. The extra side of it continues to grow, but once transcoding becomes commonly available, the use of D-Star radios is going to drop, especially if ICOM does nothing more. That is, the state of the art in the radio stays static. And it makes sense. You can still talk on D-Star all you want. It's a great place to go talk. But, well, anyway, I could carry on at length, and I'm not going to do that. But I will hear from you if you wish to carry on at length. Please key up.
W4GM.
W4GMI. Go ahead.
One comment to add to all this madness. You see the DVAP, let's see, what else is there? The BlueStack, MMDVM, and all that stuff. It's advancing, but the infrastructure itself of the radio is not going anywhere. Kenwood come out with 220, but is there a lot of people using it or whatever? And I agree with the other gentleman. With all the new software that's come out, it does it for everybody. So I can see where there's an interest lost in it. Everything is just right there and done. It's too easy now. It doesn't give the mind to think anything. It's just there and you do it. And, you don't know why it's done that way, but that's the way it is. It's done, and nobody's thinking about this. There's nothing to spark the mind anymore, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But on the other hand, the industry of the radios, nobody else is getting into it. D-stars such as Kenwood stepped out and got into it and everything. So that just boggles me how all these hot spots and all that open source stuff's going somewhere, but the radios are not going anywhere with the way they're thinking these things out and the technology. W4GMI.
K6.
Agreed. And from that theory, or hypothesis, there is a next step which you can, I think, readily see. K6FED, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just an opinion on my side. I think the reason why the radios have pretty much become stagnant is because most of the stuff that we're dealing with now is enhancements. Like you said, the open spot, the megas, and some of the appliances that they're putting out there now. And these are things that are being developed by hams. And it's the same thing I'm doing now. I'm not out in the market to buy a new radio or an amplifier or anything like that. You show me some new software or another inexpensive piece of equipment that I can bring into my D-Star infrastructure or my radio infrastructure all together, then that's pretty much the only thing I'm looking for. And just like now, the only thing that my focus is on is who's going to put out the next latest and greatest when it comes to software. I'm not looking for, like I said, another radio. I'm not looking for another appliance, because the way the hams are doing it now is they know what we have, so they're just making software to make the radios that we have better. And this, just like W4GMI just said, you have more and more stuff coming out. But I mean, just in 2 weeks alone, you had a new Buster come out. You got another piece of software called Pi-Star, and then the Blue DV just put out a piece of software for the Mac. And so you got on and on. There's just more and more software coming out to make your hardware better, and I think that's what's going on. I think D-Star is still growing, but hams are just approaching it from another direction.
Exactly. So, Frank, of all the digital radios, that is, by digital mode, which of them has seemingly new equipment, that is, new radios that are released monthly with advanced features, tricks, bells, whatever, at an ever decreasing cost? K6FED, go ahead.
I don't think there's any radios that have been introduced, but I do think that that the new software that's been kicking out is basically put us in a position where there's no need to buy anything else. You guys were talking earlier about DMR and all the other modes. Well, now you got guys that are producing software that functions with that goes on top of the MMDVM. So now I got a DV Mega that's pretty much a multi-mode repeater. So if I want to, I go buy another radio. Before long, you'll probably see something coming out from Goose where the DV Mega you got, the only thing you're probably going to have to do is add a microphone to it. So these are the things that I think are on the horizon. And the radios will still be in the shack, but they'll probably be like some of the amplifiers that I got sitting here now. I'll only turn them on for special occasions, over.
Yep, that's another direction. If you need to get a radio to work with your device using whatever software is available, would you buy a $500 radio? Well, actually, with chargers and battery, drop-in charger, would you buy An $800 radio? Or would you spend $250 for a radio?
I'd be more inclined to spend $250 for a radio, but if you throw in a third option, which would be an appliance, I would probably select the appliance over either radio because of the fact that I know with the appliance, eventually they're going to send out some firmware, and that's going to make my appliance a lot newer than either one of the radios, the $200 radio or the $500 radio.
Exactly. Well said. Stations, please key up.
W4GM.
W4GMI, go ahead.
It's kind of funny. I just thought about this, and you guys talking, it's making sense to me. Do you realize I still got three 2200H radios in my fleet? I've got a 92 AD. I've got ID 800 and 880. And yeah, I could go out and buy a 5100 or a 51, ID 51. But I still have just as much functionality with my 2200H than I do with a 51A. And y'all laugh at me and think this thing out. With the software that's come out now, I can take 2200H and do DTMF keypad and go anywhere I want to on a reflector. Any reflector, as long as the software let me do it. Such as the Maryland D-Star system that I'm running now, I can do DTMF. And I only have X amount of memories in that 2200H or the ID 800 or the 92 AD. But with the software, I can do just as much with that as I can the 51A, but other than the GPS, I have to add that on to it. And there's a couple of little things, but if you think about it, I'm with this other guy. The software is where it's carrying. W4GMI.
K6KB.
Yep. The decisions are going to be based on devices, not radios. K6KD, go ahead.
I've got a little different opinion on that. I think the $200 radio is going to certainly win out over the $600 or $800 radio. But the issue with devices is most of them, are connected to a power supply or a battery, maybe a Wi-Fi, if not, connected directly up to the, to Ethernet. And it's just a lot handier to be using a radio and be able to move around. I mean, it just after when before cordless phones got popular, I thought to myself, why in the world would you want to use a cordless phone? I mean, what's the point? I was just used to using regular phones. Then cordless phones came out, and lo and behold, you could walk around while using it. You weren't tethered. I think, for the same reason, I don't use dongles that much. I've got them, but I use radio with and I don't use mobiles that much either, to tell you the truth, because if you're sitting at a desk, you could use a mobile or you could use a device. But if you want to walk around, it's an HT, and I don't think they're going away, especially with the low price, the other mode radios accessing D-Star. Back to net.
W4GMI.
W4GMI, go ahead.
Well, I'm almost in agreement with him, although I don't own a lot of handhelds, other than the cheap Chinese knockoff. The throwaway radios, what I say. Devices are throwaway now, but I'd rather have a radio versus a device, because what happens when the internet goes out on that device? Then you're doomed. I don't know. I always prefer a radio going to a device, so then that device goes out, I pick up that radio and walk on and still talk. W4GMI.
K6.
And David, you mean accessing a repeater? If the device goes, is that what you started about W4GMI? I got K6FED, I guess recognized. W4GMI, go ahead.
That's right. Such as the internet goes down a repeater, I can still use that handheld into that repeater and still talk. Other than I'm not tied to a gateway, or if the device goes down, then I can pick up the radio and still do functions on Simplex, on D-Star, or talk to a repeater or whatever that I can't do with that device when the internet goes down. W4GMI.
Yeah, the only thing is that the loss of internet has become more infrequent. While it used to be a big concern, and people always had backups, but assuming that you have some sort of backup power supply, just eliminating the power side of it, which certainly if you lost power to the house or you could still get a radio and key up a repeater. But just say, let's just say you've got some minimal backup power capability. What's left in Dave's argument is the internet. And you have to ask yourself, when was the last time you lost the internet for a significant period of time for reasons other than you didn't pay your bill? So then that then comes to the next question of, are we moving in a direction with reflectors and devices such that repeaters are going to become, backseat riders and may eventually become completely unnecessary? Just food for thought. K6FED, go ahead.
N6HKH in the group. Yeah, that was going to be my comment, because I used to subscribe to that, when the internet goes down, we're not going to be able to play radio anymore, but I sometimes I like to compare things. And when I do a comparison of how often the internet is down as compared to me not being able to transmit because of band conditions, it seems like the internet wins out every time. So I think we can't use that anymore as a reason to kind of shy away from some of the modes that we're doing, because more often than not, the bands are in worse conditions than the internet. But and as far as some of the appliances, hams have gotten pretty good as far as using their imagination. I don't have any appliance that I've purchased to date that does not work off of a battery pack, and I have yet to see too many times when I leave home and I don't have my cell phone, so I almost always have internet access. So in a lot of instances, it's kind of like you were saying, Mike. The internet infrastructure is pretty solid, and in most instances, it's a lot more solid than the bands themselves. Over.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, when the internet does go down, you should just go to your car and whip out the Wi-Fi hotspot, power it up, connect your device to that, and guess what? You're back on the internet. Now, it may not be as fast as the internet coming out of your house, but you don't need much speed or bandwidth to operate a access device or hotspot. It takes up actually almost, we had this discussion a couple, 3 weeks ago about the bandwidth for devices, and there was concern posted in the shout box about that, and the answer was it doesn't take up much at all. It's hardly anything. Now there are exceptions. AT&T provides crappy internet, and that's one reason why I bailed from it. There are places where you're still on twisted pair, your cable, because there's no fiber optic or anything fast at all. There are spots throughout the country where the internet is, slow and not very good, but those regions are becoming few and far between. And except for AT&T, which seems to constantly be going backwards in its provision of internet and throttling constantly. And but I hate AT&T. If anyone, that was my. Anyway, you guys know I had terrible internet for about a year, but that was a different place and different. It was AT&T, and thank God I got rid of them. And I actually found out what fast internet meant at a lower price. But oh well. Let's see. I'm stations, please see ya. All right. Well, perhaps we've talked this one out. It's my job to keep things rolling, and it's sometimes tough to do. But this is just one of those nights. But still, we are, as everyone should know, slowly moving to what really is a newfound open system versions of what used to be hated non-D-Star digital modes because they were closed systems, closed source, closed everything, where, your finger's going to get slammed in the door. And threats of violence if you try to, reverse engineer or do anything there. You can't connect to ARIA, blah, blah, blah. And recently, things have changed, as John's described and as Bob has described in the past. You've heard tonight some discussion about that. And so we must change, we being the roundtable. And we're doing it slowly because not everything is ready to roll. And it's difficult to talk intelligently about advanced digital D-Star technical issues on something that isn't working yet. I don't have any problem talking about what's coming around the corner with those that are looking years ahead at digital, modes for amateur radio are thinking. But that's not the same as the nuts and bolts on an advanced basis that we try to entertain. So, the guys that run the reflectors that are part of the constellation, they're moving as quickly as they can to embrace new technology that's an open system, open source. And this net will embrace that as well. But it's nothing that's going to happen overnight. Some of it's around the corner, some of it's not. There are, you've heard tonight some discussions about how economic decisions drive what people are going to buy in amateur radio. You've heard about the backsliding that the primary purveyor of ICOM equipment, G-Star equipment, namely ICOM, seems to be. I am convinced that the D74's 220 capabilities is not going anyplace. I was hoping it would, but it's not. There's not a clamor for it. There are 220 D-meters up, yes, but few and far between. And if the frequency pair is needed for another purpose, the 220 is going to go on the by and by. Just a minute. But the discussion will always be D-Star. It's just that we may not be discussing D-Star in terms of what is ICOM doing? What are the other vendors doing? It may be, instead, not so much a manufacturer. It may be, instead, the equipment And it may not always be D-Star. In fact, it won't always be D-Star. Yet, it'll be about talking on D-Star, but not in the way that we do it today. Things are moving pretty quickly. And in my view, it won't be long before you key up on D-Star, you can talk on DMR and et cetera, et cetera. You key up on Fusion, you can talk on D-Star. You know, that is coming. Not now, but it's gonna be here. And as we see more work done, both in software and hardware, and as the way of talking on D-Star evolves, be it by technology or a matter of economics, we're going to be on top of it. Multi-mode, yes. D-Star the emphasis, yes. So, that's why this is the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. It probably will always have the same name, but we do entertain, obviously, and must. Open source digital modes. So, let's see where we're at. I don't have any stations. I'm out of them. Unless you keyed up. I didn't recognize you, but that is so rare. You can key back up again. Nothing new in the shout box. I don't have anything in my email box. I'll be texting me. I'm not begging for people to send me texts. I'm just saying. So, let's see where we're at. Stations. Please, yeah.
W4GMI.
W4GMI. Go ahead.
Mike, was there nothing new at Dayton or up there at the Hamfest? Did anybody come out with a new hot spot or anything? I mean, was there any vaporware? Any discussion about vaporware? Over.
Yeah, actually, last week we had a report on products being sold, and there wasn't anything new. But there was quite a bit of discussion in the forums and at some of the booths of new things, and we ran them all down, and both from Internet Labs, from Goose Van Doren's, you know, the DB Mega Boys, as well as what Wireless Holdings, you know, the DB4, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is working on. But I don't think anybody bought. There was nothing new for sale, and somebody can correct me if I'm not remembering. And there actually is a post on the roundtable that is in. Let me find it. I think it's in current. No, doggone it. Somebody help me. Where's that W6JM? Oh no, yeah, it's in the shout box, and it's a link to his very complete rundown of what is new and that is what is up and coming in D-Star in the way of access devices. And see, let me. I'm sitting here picking away at the Roundtable forum board, and I got caught up in something. Okay, so if you go to general discussions, you go to Shoutbox History, and you go to May 25th, which is last week. You'll scroll down and you'll see several links from K6JM. And the best of which is the one that is Dayton 2017 D-Star Digital Voice, as well as some other links that he has as well. That document has the best rundown I've seen of anybody posted anywhere about, could be vaporware, but they claim they're making it that I've seen posted any place. That is what I'd have you take a look at, and, you know, I'm up for discussing any of those devices, real or imagined, at any time. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, Mike. With my problem with my eyes right now, I get my wife to run that down for me right quick and look at it for me and read it. And maybe I can have a more educated discussion on it. But anyway, I appreciate that. W4GMI.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone that wants to see what happened at Dayton to go to the Shoutbox history, which is in the general discussions board. It says Shoutbox history as a subboard, and go to last week, May 25th, and then look for the K6JM, the first post that he has as far as the 2017 Dayton, and then download that document. It actually takes you to his website or to his blog, and then you can print or download that, and I am more than happy to go over that again, because not a lot of time was spent on it. Nobody really, of course, a lot of that stuff nobody has, but the concept and what these devices are alleged to do is just as important as having them in hand, but not, of course, not quite as much. So that's where I would go, and you know, you guys are welcome to take a look at that during the week upcoming, and we'll be happy to talk about it again, because it's new stuff and allegedly coming out. Thanks for asking, David. Stations, please key up. All right, is there any further business for the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable? Any final words, thoughts? Are you guys spitting blood over the discussion of what's happening now in D-Star and the future of D-Star and some of the comments you've heard about radios, devices, and software? If so, we can talk about this some more. But right now, I have 0 on my board. So that means that either we proceed if people key up, or we don't, which is, of course, up to participating stations. Stations, please key up.
K6FE.
K6FED, go ahead.
I have one last thing, Mike. This was something rare that I saw on the internet, and I think I also saw it in a magazine. But I saw an advertisement for repeater space for rent, and I think I saw it not only for one group, but I also saw it for another group. And I'm wondering if, with the prevalence of hotspots, has it kind of freed up a lot of space in the what do you call it, repeater storage rooms? You know, I'm just wondering if the hotspots are there's so many hotspots out there, is that a lot of organizations are deciding they don't need repeaters, so these guys are offering space for rent at reasonable rates. Over.
I don't know. You know, it might be interesting to call them to ask why they have space available for rent. What happened with what was there that I presume is no longer there? They must have like a lease or a contract and have to pay for space in a, you know, in a bunker or a hilltop site, despite not having any equipment in there, much like you would have on a lease that, whether you live there or not, you're obligated to pay for it for at least a year or whatever the term of the contract is. But it would be interesting to find out what got shut down. You know, I don't think it's so much that these devices are obsoleting repeaters. I think reflectors and the capability software-wise, especially in the DMR side, of being able to access talk groups directly without having to go through and the DMR gateway is an example of this. It's the latest example where you don't need a repeater, and actually most DMR repeaters are a nightmare. There's too many rules. There's too many active and static talk groups, and with or without the delight, as some call it, of Brandmeister, repeaters are cumbersome on DMR compared to DMR access through devices, through easy access through talk groups, directly through reflectors, or directly in other means. And I think that DMR repeaters are going to, go into the trash heap. Now, D-Star, not so fast. Fusion, I can't imagine why he would put up a Fusion repeater, but that's just me. So you could be right. It would be fun to know, and it would be an interesting trend if there is one. Maybe somebody can check that out. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Frank. Stations, please, Kia.
W4G.
And before I go to W4GMI, I personally know of more DMR repeaters that have been sold, taken out of service, as being unnecessary to operate on DMR. Personally know of people that have put them up and then gotten rid of them because they are unnecessary. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, being in the repeater business, I put up repeaters so our club members or people in our area can get familiar with it instead of going out. It's kind of mind-boggling to go out and say, hey, you need to buy this hotspot, you need to do this, and it kind of turns them off. So I say, well, here, buy radio, I'll help you out with it. You can get on the repeater, and I've gained more with honey than I have vinegar on that aspect. But I will say, we put up a System Fusion repeater, and with all the issues with the software and everything, and our guys got tired of messing with it because they said, well, these guys spend more time working on it and talking and how to fix it and this problem and that problem, and we just don't get to enjoy a conversation. But I will say that $500 repeater turned into a DMR repeater, which was more functional as a DMR or D-Star repeater than it was a System Fusion. But on the other hand, the DMR repeater, the biggest complaint I get, there's too many rules on here. If I talk too long, the radio Nazi comes down and hits me between the eyes with a tack hammer, blah, 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 But, we do the tech talk on D-Star, but we make it more pleasurable, and everything. So, that's my thoughts. W4GMI.
Well, again, I have talked to people that have bought the DR1X, System Fusion repeater on the cheap, put it up with System Fusion, got mad at it, nobody used it, nobody wanted it, the radios are trash, and they converted it to D-Star. D-Star repeaters are going to have functions for quite some time because of the uniqueness of their gateway and the capability of just keying up a repeater quickly, connecting to a reflector, assuming that it is enabled for D extra as well as D plus, or D plus as well as D extra, I guess. And I think just D plus D-Star repeaters are going to become dinosaurs over time. I don't care what D-Star 3.0 does. I don't care what ICOM, if they don't, well, anyway, we've had this discussion before. That's a different story, I believe, than DMR, which, frankly, I don't know why anybody would put up a DMR repeater anymore. System fusion is just a matter of, you know, if you think fusion is a great thing, you know, you're going to clamor to put up a repeater, but, you know, all the effort is being put into wires X and that kind of connectivity. But look at the YSF, you know, reflectors. That's a great thing. I don't think they're going to. I don't think fusion is going to go anywhere, but that's just my view. It's just going to kind of tread water, and the radios are, you know, not, you know. Well, anyway, I don't want to bang on fusion because we don't deal with fusion much here. But fusion does have open source, open system, the YSF reflectors, and there's, you know, connectivity there through non-fusion means, but you know, there's just not a lot of activity. Fusion, just in the overall scheme of things, there isn't much going on. You know, you may have a little group or segment of people in an area geographic that are you know, they all have fusion radios. That's one thing, and that's fine, I guess. But over the very, very long run, it's reflectors. It's going to be hotspots, access points, and reflectors. This is over the long run. Stations, please key up.
W4G.
W4GMI, go ahead.
I will say this in closing remarks to this discussion about fusion. The people in the fusion world are spending more time trying to figure out how to hook Echolink, All-Star, DMR, D-Star. They're trying to figure out how to link all these other modes to enhance their mode. And I'm like you, Mike, it's going nowhere. Alright, that's all I got to say. W4GMI. Get out of here, man.
Yes, sir. Well, I probably will here pretty quick. Well, they're you know, those guys are missing the boat, and you know, some of them have access to grind. They've had bad experiences with, you know, D-Star, and they test the stations on DM. You know, there's all kinds of reasons why people operate where they are, and I'm not bad mouthing the people at all. You know, who am I to say what you like the best? But cross mode or transcoding is not coming from the fusion side. I can guarantee you that. That is the last place that the work is going to be done. So you got to just quit while they're ahead. So where are we? I'm out of calls. Stations, please key up now.
N5VR.
N5VRP. Dennis, good to see you. Go ahead.
Good to hear everyone on the net, and you too, Mike. Yeah, it kind of started out kind of slow tonight, but hey, sometimes that happens. And as I have heard through my sources, I have not heard very much coming out of Dayton like we normally have had in the past. However, there's one topic that you might keep on your to-do list there, and you need to give it a little time for that to soak in from the people that have bought them, because I've heard on other reflectors that there have been some people that did buy them at Dayton or just after Dayton. And that's I think it's called the ID 4100, the new mobile, and be interesting to see how those people like it, dislike it, whatever the case may be. So I don't know that maybe next Thursday would be too early to ask for that question, but might want to do that. Just don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all transpired. I heard that they did drop the price maybe $100 or $200, something like that, at Dayton for that particular unit. And I've heard that from two different hams on two different reflectors. So, and that's 1 Charlie and 30 Charlie. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But I'm not in the buying mode for that. I've got more D-Star equipment around here and just gained another one here recently from someone that didn't want it and gave it to me. He won it at a raffle, and I got me a 51 anniversary. And I've been playing with it. I've had it on tonight, and I've talked on it a couple of times so far, after I figured it all out. Back to you there, Mike. Still a good net, and maybe you're playing baseball tonight. I don't know. Back to net control in 5BRB.
All right, Dennis, thanks for the shot in the arm. And, well, the NBA playoffs are going on, and, of course, it's baseball, and who knows. You know, the usual villain for drawing people away is Thursday night football, and we're not anywhere near that right now. But, you know, we ride that through because usually, well, anyway. I have asked concerning the ID 4100, which we've basically vilified, and maybe we've scared away stations that have one that, you know, would key up to talk about it. But since its release, and it was available to be purchased prior to Dayton, I've asked for stations with that radio to key up and tell us about it. And in all those times since its release, during each roundtable, except for tonight's one, only one station keyed up to say, I have one, and that was a New Zealand station. And that station bought it just for the newness of it. And the fact that he wanted a mobile, you know, and you know, he was working fine. He wasn't using the terminal mode or the access mode because that's just junk. And that's why we've been vilifying the radio. But nobody else, I don't think I've had a North American station or any other station outside of New Zealand that would key up and admit that they actually owned and that 4100 and put it to use. Now, as time progresses, yeah, there'll be people picking it up. But I don't see anybody, you know, there's no lines at HRO. And it was discounted for Dayton at most of the vendors. There are no lines for that radio. So, but I agree. I wanted to talk about it because if there are good features or new things that we've overlooked and that outweigh some of the stupid functionality that they implemented in the radio that was, to me, a step backwards, you know, we want to hear about it because we're all here subject to change of opinion. Well, some of us. But thanks for the suggestion. I will start asking about that every roundtable until we get, well, you know, more than just one station to say that they have one. Maybe we've got people afraid to buy them now. I don't know. Of course, that would be fine with me. All right, Dennis, good to hear from you. Stations, please, Kia.
K6JM.
Holy Toledo, it's K6JM, late hour. Jim, thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Hi, Mike. This is K6JM. Using my new DV Mega Blue DV Blue Stack system, and I'm in a funny place, so if I cut in and out, it's probably my end. Just one comment on the 4100. I'm kind of excited about it just because as a mobile radio, it's not too expensive compared to, let's say, the 2820 was. It looks like a pretty good radio. And I've got a really old one in my car, and so I'll probably replace it eventually with the 4100 when I get the money together and stuff. But it just seems like a pretty good radio. Forget about the so-called terminal mode and access point mode. Yeah, the 51A plus 2, what can we say? If it comes through that they hire Robin to fix it, that is, support linking to REF reflectors, that will be an improvement, but they can't fix the problem that they failed to use Bluetooth. You know, so that's a permanent hardware problem. And I'm not going to defend their decisions there, but the 4100 looks to me like a pretty good radio. Anyway, back to you. We're at a dog show near Lake Oroville, a little place called Gridley. One of the hottest places on the planet, I think, for dog shows. 4 days, first day today. Back to you, Mike, K6JM.
Well, Jim, thanks for checking in on your new device, and you didn't break up. You had great audio. Can't complain at all. Congratulations. And, you know, your comment on the 4100 is what we're looking for, because there have been so few purchasers that have, you know, put it through. Well, again, like I said, we had one New Zealand station. But you know, we haven't had people, I guess, say, okay, look, here's what the higher price, the extra money, just forgetting about the terminal mode and the access point, just set that, because that's stupid, cabled. You know, and ignoring the fact that it has no capability to connect to reflectors yet, which I thought was a huge you know, brain fart on ICOM's part, just overlooking that altogether. But just generally, is this an approved and worthy mobile? And so you've, you know, given us some food for thought. We just need to get it in the hands of some folks, especially if they're regulars here on the round table, and say, look, you know, I've listened to you guys badmouth this part of those radios, and you know, wanting to know more about features that are perhaps, you know, good things, and we haven't anybody come on to do that. We'll get a volunteer, but I mean, that's a lot of money. But you know, when you get one, you know what you think. We appreciate it. Hey, have fun at the dog show. Thanks for checking in. How fun is that? K6JM, go ahead, if you have anything further.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to use terminal mode or access point mode with a mobile unit anyway, with a cable and fiddling. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. You know, people who want to do that stuff would set up a DVAP or a DV Mega or any similar, or like the one I have here with the DV Mega and the BlueStack UDV, where you kind of get it all set up and then you drive. You're not going to fool around with cables into your phone and stuff. So that just makes no sense to me at all. Just think of it as a newer mobile radio. It doesn't have all of the features that a fully loaded, 2820 did. But it has what I'm looking for, which is just being able to drive around town and get into the local repeater, maybe key up the repeater and link to XRF002 Alpha. So I'm just thinking of it as just a basic mobile radio. Anyway, those are my comments, but you're right. We need to get people who have used it. Good to talk to you. Getting up a little bit early tomorrow, so I'm going to hang in here for a while and listen. But it's great to have a chance to talk on the net for just a minute. Back to you, Mike. This is K6JM.
I'm glad you did, Jim. You made my evening, and especially checking in from a dog show on a new access device. Congratulations on that. Thanks for checking in. Appreciate it. Talk to you again. Stations, please give. All right, anybody have anything they want to throw out? We don't take check-ins, but any final thoughts for the roundtable? Anybody last-minute thoughts come to mind? If you're a station that never keys up on the roundtable except when we're about to close the doors, which of course we never do as long as there's a station willing to participate, but still, if that's you, you might want to think about doing it, because I think it's about time. I tell you what, that after this past week, I'm just beat. But you guys hold the cards, so let's see where we're at. Stations, please key up.
Contact, please.
K6.
Contact denied. Stations, please key up. K6FED, go ahead.
Yes, Mike, if Jim's there, I have a question for him. K6JM, over.
Well, he said he was going to go into listening mode. Look, K6GM, do you have time to take a question? If you don't, no problem. Don't key back up, but if you do, just quick key and we'll take it. K6FED has a question. I know you said you were ready to go on the side, but you just never know. K6GM, if you're there, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. I'm not going to be here long, but I'll go for one here. This is K6JM.
Just for you, K6FED, go get them. Go ahead.
A little black dongle that had the 3000 chip in it. And my question is it possible to update the firmware in there? And the reason I'm asking is David out of the Netherlands has produced some software to work with the AMD 3000 chip. And I'm just curious if there was some firmware I could upgrade so maybe I could possibly use that Blue DV software.
K6FED, I think we missed the very first few sentences of your transmission, because you just kind of came up and we're talking about a device. I'm not clear which one it is you have. That may be the reason for the delay in Jim's response. So which device is it again? K6FED, go ahead.
It's the little device that plugged into the Windows machine. It came with a microphone, and the microphone acted as a I can't remember the name right off the top of my head. But I was just curious if it was possible to update the firmware in it. I have to apologize now, I'm unprepared, but I just can't remember the name of the device, but it was something he was selling last year.
Are you talking about Star DV?
Yeah, that's what it was, the Star DV.
K6JM, go ahead.
Figured out my problem. Yeah, and it was a Star TV. My phone is my Wi-Fi access point, and my wife came along and sat down near it, and we have a real weak cell signal here in the hotel in Gridley. So at any rate, that was a problem. I moved the phone. If you want to check if you have the latest firmware, send me an email. It's my call sign at well, the simplest one would be jim@k6jm.com. And you can update the firmware. And the author of the firmware has a couple of beta versions. It's not that he's making new changes, but we're trying different things. So depending on what you're trying to do, we might have something different for you. But we continue to support it. Back to you, Mike, and hopefully my cell signal will hang in there with movement around the room.
Yeah, we got your entire transmission, and we're going to let you go. No more questions, because you said you didn't want anyone anymore, but we thank you for answering Frank's. So K6FED, there you go. Email him and tell him, well, you heard what his response was. And, wow, I didn't know there was maybe some beta versions of StarDV firmware software updates in the cooking, percolating somewhere. So there you go. K6FED, go ahead.
That's what I like about hanging out with you guys, Mike. You learn new stuff every day, and I do appreciate you doing the relay, and I do appreciate Jim coming back to me. I will make sure he gets that email, and whatever I'm successful at, I will definitely share it with the group. So N6HKH and K6JM. This is K6FED, and we're clear in 73.
Alrighty. Well, just keep in mind, though, he's at a 4-day dog show, so don't expect him to respond to you in the next half hour. All right, Frank, appreciate it. All right, as we wrap up tonight's Thursday night D-Star Roundtable here on the constellation of X Reflectors, formerly known as the Kings of Digital Group. Anything further? Let's take you now. Otherwise, we'll see you either during the week on the constellation or next Thursday. Stations, please key up.
W4GM.
W4GMI, go ahead.
Mike, I don't know how it's doing everybody else, but the change of time for the East Coast is great for me. But I don't know how it's doing for you guys, but on the West Coast, but we appreciate your efforts on that. And I'll stand by for the secret code on the remote W4GM.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten about it. In fact, during one of the transmissions, I never admit when I step away from the desk. But you did hear a long pause, and I was reaching for the device and blowing the dust off it. And I've got it sitting here. I'm going to fire it up and fire up that program, and I'm going to grab the password. So just either hang in there or I'll email it to you, one of the two, or I'll post in the show. Well, you know, what I'll do is I'll just do it all three. Thanks for reminding me, though, because you just never know. Sometimes, not too long after that closes, and after I've gone down the hall, and usually get a quick bite to eat, sometimes I'm gone, and not able to be woken until the next day, but not tonight. Thank you. Anybody else, please, key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. So with that, we're going to bring tonight's Thursday night's Easter Roundtable to a close. And despite the thinness of tonight's discussions, although, you know, it did get rolling after a while, the stations who participated, I really appreciate it. Because without your participation, there would be no roundtable, and we would have ended probably at it for about a half hour. So, we will, you know, let's see, let me just think this through here real quick. Just a minute. So, the podcast, as you guys know, will be up usually by noon the following Friday, but usually it's up sooner than that. The shout box will be cleaned up. Not a lot going on there, but it'll be put to the shout box history about 15 minutes after the roundtable closes. Podcast listeners will get it downloaded automatically, assuming you're using a fairly modern or new or recently updated version of your podcast player of choice. And the constellation of X reflectors is always open for business. Feel free to stop on by, especially if nothing's happening on your favorite repeater or reflector. Usually there's people hanging around willing to talk, and you just never know. We appreciate anybody checking in. We've got more and more repeaters and, well, it's just gateways and reflectors that are linking, as you know, in the X reflector business. You can connect reflectors to reflectors. And so we're starting to get more happening. We're hopefully going to start supplementing or adding to the constellation with some nets that are being heard on, one repeater or reflector, and are going to be coming to join us in times other than Thursday nights, obviously. So you should look forward to that. We'll be adding them as they're ready to make the jump, because we've got plenty of time, space, capability, and I'd like to think excitement in listeners, because the idea is to build these other nets that are of interest to the Digital and D-Star crew. So looking forward to that. And anytime the shout box is open 24/7, and I think I'm stumbling over trying to say, feel free to use it. I would not start what I would describe as a topic thread, that is a topic-driven discussion. I would put that in maybe the current discussions folder. But the shout box, though, is available where you can post suggested topics, certain situations, announcements, one-shot type deals during the week. You don't post it right this minute because obviously it's going to be moved to the history and it'll be gone. But after you see a clean slate, you can build it up during the week. We don't get rid of it during the week until the end of the roundtable, so it's there to be used. So without further ado, I want to thank everyone, and hope everybody has a great weekend. I look forward to talking to you on D-Star and N6HKH. Good night.
N6HKH, this is K6JM.
K6GM, go ahead.
One topic we might want to talk about next week is for those repeater gateways that do switch to the G3 gateway from ICOM. I found out from one of the people on the Freestar team that they are in the testing phase, or have tested in the documentation phase of G2 Link. I don't know if they're going to rename it G3 Link, but they've been making the changes to G2 Link so that it will work with G3. This is a really simple way for people who have stock ICOM repeaters and stock ICOM gateway. After upgrading to G3, they would be able to have support for linking to XRF reflectors and DCS reflectors. So, we've kind of had a setback with the G3. Everybody had to go and change their software. And it sounds like they have that changed and they're now documenting it. So that should be coming out soon officially, I guess, for maybe a topic for next week.
Oh, I agree. I haven't seen that, and if there's a document or two or someplace I can go to download some of it, unless you're going to be able to join us and just refer to it, I'd like to get that posted on the shout box, or if it's ready to roll. If not, just a discussion about it would be a good topic. I appreciate you mentioning that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, most people really, if you would have the statistics or be able to get to them, are probably listening and participating via some form of hotspot or access point that is able to link in to XRF reflectors. But I think it's a good idea